We have started Unit 2 of Chemistry and we are going to revise what we have studied in last 4 days, right? First we studied about resources. So let us see what are resources. A resource is any material or source of energy which has some utility for human beings. Water is a resource. Where do we get resources from nature? We get out resources either from nature or they are produced by us. So resources are of two types: natural resources and human made resources. Naturally available in our environment are the natural resources. Examples are forest, wind or water. About human made resources, resources made by humans using the natural resources available to them. Examples are furniture, jewelry or medicine. Based on their availability, natural resources can be classified into two types: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So let us see what are renewable or inexhaustible resources. These resources are available in abundance. They cannot be exhausted and also they can be reused. About non-renewable resources or exhaustible resources, these resources are limited in quantity, they can be exhausted as well as they cannot be reused. So, name two examples each of inexhaustible and exhaustible resources. We need two examples of each. So, here are the examples. Renewable resources are wind and water. Non-renewable resources are coal and petroleum. So what we have studied, resources are of two types: natural resources and human made resources. And natural resources are again of two types: renewable or inexhaustible, such as wind and water, also sunlight, and non-renewable or exhaustible resources such as coal, petroleum and natural gas. Students, now we will see how the fossil fuels are formed and how they are extracted through this CRL.
Hello students, here is a question for you. What are the sources of energy that supply power to our houses, schools and industries? What makes cars, trucks and planes move? Yes, fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum and natural gas supply the energy required for producing electricity and moving vehicles. In this video, we will see how these different fossil fuels are formed. First, let's go back in time and find out how coal was formed. Around 300 million years ago, the Earth looked very different from today. It was filled with dense forests in many low-lying wetlands such as swamps and marshes. When plants in these forests died, they fell on the ground. As the time passed, the ground was flooded frequently, and layers of sediment and soil were deposited on top of the dead plants. This prevented the plants from being decomposed completely. Over time, Many more layers of soil and sediments were deposited, which buried these dead plants deeper and deeper under the ground. As more layers of soil and rocks were deposited on top, the pressure and temperature experienced by the layer of dead plants continued to increase. This increase in pressure and temperature over millions of years turned the dead plants into coal. Now, how do we extract this coal? In order to extract coal, we need to dig it out or mine it by using machines to get under all the layers of the soil and rocks above it. The miners may have to dig anywhere between 100-meter to 1500-meter deep to get to the layer which has coal. We saw how coal is formed and extracted. Now, let's see how petroleum and natural gas were formed. Around 300 million years ago, something similar to what was happening on land was also happening inside the seas and oceans. The marine organisms, such as fish and plankton, fell on the ocean floor after they died. Over the years, they were also buried under layers of sand, clay, and rocks. These layers of sand and rocks compressed these organisms under their weight. The temperature below so many layers was also extremely high. Under extremely high temperature and pressure, and in the absence of air, these dead marine organisms got converted into petroleum and natural gas. Petroleum and natural gas can be found in reservoirs beneath layers of impervious rocks. In such reservoirs, petroleum and natural gas float on top of the water as they are lighter. To reach the layer which has petroleum, a rig is set up to support the drill. It can be set up on land or offshore in the sea. Then, a well is drilled from the rig until we reach the layer of petroleum. Later, pumps are used to extract the petroleum and natural gas. So now we know that fossil fuels were formed when fossils of dead organisms got buried deep under layers of sand, clay, and rocks and were converted into fuels under extremely high temperature and pressure over millions of years. They are extracted by different means. Coal is mined and petroleum and natural gas are pumped out. Since the quantity of these resources is limited and their formation takes millions of years, it is important to use them responsibly. It is advisable to use non-conventional sources of energy like solar energy, tidal energy, and wind energy wherever possible.
Students, on day 3, we learnt about the byproducts of coal, which are coke, coal tar, and coal gas. So, what are the uses of coal? Coal is used to generate electricity and to generate heat in a furnace or cooking stove. What is coal tar used for? Coal tar is used for surfacing the roads. Through this CRL, we will learn about the petroleum and its uses.
In this video, we will learn more about petroleum. Unlike coal, which can be used directly, petroleum must be processed before use. Why do you think petroleum has to be processed before use? We have learnt about formation of fossil fuels. Let us quickly revise how petroleum is formed. Millions of years ago, dead marine organisms got buried in the ocean floor. Over time, they were covered with layers of silt and sand. As they were buried deeper and deeper, they turned into oil and gas due to the enormous heat, pressure, and the absence of air. Today, we obtain these gases and oil deposits by drilling through the layers of sand, silt, and rock. But how do we reach these fuels buried deep in the earth? We do so by drilling a well through the layers of the earth. Drilling is done until some crude oil or gas is found. Such a well is known as an oil well. Petroleum is a thick, viscous mixture of different substances. Hence, it cannot be used directly. The different substances can be separated and used for different purposes. The components of petroleum are separated at a place called a petroleum refinery. It involves three major steps: separating the different components of petroleum, converting the different components into usable products, removing harmful toxins from the mixture. The constituents are separated through fractional distillation. Do you know what fractional distillation is? Similar to distillation, fractional distillation is a separation method in which a mixture of two or more liquids is separated using the differences in their boiling points. Fractional distillation of petroleum is a key industrial process. In this method, petroleum is heated until it separates into a number of components known as fractions. For this, a tall fractionating column with trays is used. The column is hot at the bottom and cool at the top. Different components of petroleum boil at different temperatures and condense at different levels due to differences in temperature along the fractionating column. They are then collected in separate trays. What do you think are the components of petroleum? The components of petroleum are refinery or petroleum gas, petrol, naphthalene, kerosene, diesel, lubricating oil, paraffin wax, and bitumen. Can you think of the uses of these components? Refinery or petroleum gas is compressed as LPG and used as a fuel at home and in some industries. Petroleum is used as a vehicle and aviation fuel. It is also used as a solvent for dry cleaning. Naphthalene is generally used as a solvent in manufacturing laundry soaps and in cleaning fluids. Kerosene is used as a fuel for stoves, lamps, and for jet aircrafts. Diesel is used as a fuel for heavy motor vehicles and electric generators. Lubricating oil is used in motorized vehicles to lubricate the moving parts of the engine. Paraffin wax is used in manufacturing ointment, candles, and Vaseline. Bitumen is used for road surfacing and for manufacturing paints. To summarize, petroleum is a thick, viscous mixture made up of different constituents and cannot be directly used as a fuel. Petroleum is separated into usable constituents by the process of refining. This is done through fractional distillation. Fractional distillation is a separation method in which a mixture of two or more liquids is separated using the differences in their boiling points.